Hello everybody, I hope that you're having a great day. I thought I would pop in today and just chat with you a little bit about homeschooling and special needs, as I know this is a topic that is really relevant to a lot of families, especially families who are having their children pulled out of school this year, who have various IEPs or special needs that they have to figure out how to adjust into their lives. Now, I do want to say before I start that I feel slightly unqualified to be able to speak about this with you because special needs is such a huge topic, and it's such a huge variety of things, from kids who have dyslexia to kids who have autism and kids who have ADHD, and there's a lot. It's a huge category and something that I'm not an expert in, I'm not qualified to speak from, but I thought I would just share with you from my heart and from our experiences so you can kind of see that homeschooling can work with children who've got unique needs. I don't usually talk about my children's challenges because it's kind of their personal journeys and it's not their identities, it's not who they are. It's just one piece of the picture of all of them. So I don't usually talk about them, but I wanted to be able to share with you our experiences so that you can understand how it works in our family. So I've got 5 kids. 2 of them have been officially diagnosed. One has been diagnosed with the very stereotypical textbook version of ADHD, like the bouncing off the walls and the forgetfulness and the interrupting people and the can't stay focused longer than about 2.6 seconds unless it's something that he's really passionate about, and then he focuses forever. Okay, and with that we have ODD as well, along with and ODD stands for oppositional defiance disorder. So that's one of my children. Another one has been diagnosed with ADD, inattentive, which means that he doesn't really know what's going on very well. He gets very distracted by outside noises and he finds it hard to focus on things. We joke sometimes that he feels like Captain Oblivious. Okay. And I do have another child that has not been diagnosed with anything. However, we've struggled a lot with social anxiety and what I believe is an undiagnosed eating disorder, things like that. So there are special needs in our house, and 2 of them have been officially diagnosed. Now, one of the things I do want to say is that the best part about homeschooling is that every single thing that you do is flexible and adaptable. And for a lot of families who have special needs kids, that means that you don't have to fight a system that isn't designed for kids who have challenges. Okay? It means that you can change the way you present things. It means you can change the way you teach things, the way you do things, the way you live, to be able to make it the best for your child. So some of the things, so I was thinking about the IEP piece. Now, when we got diagnosed, our doctor gave us an IEP, and it very outlined, and we didn't get diagnosed until they were older. Like I didn't really pursue it too much until they're older because I was told that in order to access services that I needed, we needed to have a diagnosis. So that's when we started to pursue it. But we hadn't, I already knew my kids' diagnosis. Being around your kids all day, every day, seeing them interact and doing school, that kind of stuff, you know your kids. You know how they're feeling. You know their areas of weaknesses. You know their areas of amazing excellence. You know all those pieces. And so I already knew the diagnosis that I was going to get for both of them. But we had to have it to get resources. And so that's why we went ahead and did it. Now we got the IEP, and I actually laughed because it had things, I wanted to find it so I could show it to you and talk about it a little bit clearer. But honestly, after I got the paperwork from the doctor that said the official diagnosis, and after I read through all the information about it, and I read their ideas for how to adapt learning for children with this particular challenge, I put the file away and I never looked at it again, because honestly, we were doing it already. So a lot of the times with IEPs, there are things like how to adapt learning. So it's things like being in a quiet setting for doing tests or exams, or providing oral options instead of doing written options, or it's a variety of things, having someone come in and assist, or using a computer instead of yada, yada, yada. Guess what? When you're homeschooling, you already can adapt, take those tips and find a way to apply them to your learning at home. So for example, with our ADHD child, we learned that transitions were terrible. So if I expected a whole lot in our day, every time we had to transition from subject to subject to subject to subject, it caused friction, it caused stress. And so it ended up being that we were freaking out every time we had to make a change. And so that ended up being a very important piece for me to observe, to see, to be able to make a change. So we try to avoid a lot of transitions. So we have a very specific set. There's only limited amounts of transitions until they ask for things added on themselves, or I really feel like it. We try to keep minimal transitions a day. We'd use timers. Timers are key, and having specific plans so they know. And I said before, if you watched any of my previous videos, we are a very fluid family, so we do a lot of routines over schedules. So it's and then, and then, and then. So that's a lot of what we do in our house, and that has really helped my kids who thrive on some sort of schedule, and me who struggles with schedules altogether. But at least we have a pattern of what's to come. The other thing is that we do a lot of visual. So they have in the past, we've done, when they were little, we did things like charts, and on the charts had little visual cards. So one had like a little plus and minus sign, and it was for math. And so I had this whole like chart on that they each had their own. It was a little clipboard that had little cards for everything they had to do in a day. And then as we did the day, they'd flip over their card and there'd be a checklist, a check mark on the back, so they could visually see how they changed things. As they got older, we moved to things like day planners, where I had a list. I only had one day at a time on each page. Simplification was wonderful. So what we do is I'm going back to it this year because it worked really well, and they want to be more independent. So we're going to go back to that single sheet, and I've shared it recently in my Facebook page here, and you can find it on my website as well. It's called like a student daily checklist, but it's just literally a page, and on that page has subject, what work to do, and a done checklist, a done checkbox, so that they can see exactly what has to be done, and they can visually see everything they have to do and know when they'll be completed. The other thing that we've used is whiteboards. So I write on the board in the morning. Every single person has a to-do list, and it's like, what do you do for school? And I put showers on there, I put math on there, I put chores on there, I put anything on there. I also add in things like what we're having for dinner, so I don't get asked 75 million times a day. Oh, I forgot to check today. And then a list of chores so that they can, take their turns on the chores, that kind of stuff. So the more visual you can make it with a lot of special needs kids, that can really help them be able to make it through the day in a much more fluid way, because they know what to expect. They know how to handle it. They can avoid all the transitions that they are dreading, especially if they're finding it challenging. Then the next thing I will mention is that one of the benefits of homeschooling is you can adapt anything. So if you have a curriculum that isn't working with your child, you can absolutely figure out what it is that your child is struggling with and change it. If your child is struggling with math and you are homeschooling, you can slow down. There's nothing that says that you have to complete a grade curriculum in a grade. If your child is struggling with math, you can take in 2 years to go through a single unit, a single level if you need to, because it's more important to be where your child is at than where the school requires you to be. Okay, so you can adapt anything. So again, I'll give you an example from our child. I'd be honest that my most challenging child for education has been my ADHD child, because he loves learning, but he doesn't always love learning the way I think we should love learning. But reading was a struggle when he was young, because he didn't learn through phonics. No matter how hard I tried and what different variety of things I tried to use, he didn't learn through phonics. He learned by memorizing the words, and so the shapes of words. So when he's reading, he sees a word, how it looks, and he fills in the blanks with what he thinks it should be based on memorizing the words, not how the phonetics works. And so that has caused some trouble. And even older, he still has occasional times where the words don't match what he expects them to be. So the best part was I was able to adapt. We were able to go slow. We were able to find a rhythm and a method that was able to teach him and get him towards reading. So if you have a child with special needs, you can absolutely adapt any curriculum that you want to be able to fit the level that they're at and the level that you're trying to move them towards. Okay. The other thing I was going to mention about curriculum is school has regiment kind of plans. They kind of have a set way that they do learning. And quite frankly, a lot of the times it's not easy for kids with special needs to be able to sit in a classroom and do it the way that it's presented in a classroom. Now, I absolutely give props to teachers who are trying to handle classrooms with multiple kids, because I only have 5 and each child is completely different. I can't imagine trying to handle a classroom with 30 individual needs, because that would be impossible. Okay, but being at home means I can present topics in ways that are engaging to my kids. If my kids are very visual and very active, I can look for curriculum that meets that particular learning style and stretch them with something that's auditory to be able to encourage them to start developing the skills that they're struggling with if they can't handle auditory learning. So for my homeschooling, I am able to choose things that fit my child. So for example, this year, or in the past, I really loved unit studies because it gave me an opportunity to do stuff together with our family. I love doing activities. I'm all about activities. So we used to do things like science experiments, and we would pick a topic and we would do it all together. But the problem was that we weren't learning, because, for example, my ADHD child would just wander off in the middle of a discussion because he needed a snack, or he needed to sharpen his pencil because it wasn't quite sharp enough, and he would gone. And my ADD child, who has no idea what's going on, would be lost. We would do an entire group session and we'd watch a video and we'd have a discussion, and he'd have no idea what we just learned like 2 seconds ago. So to be able to adapt it, I learned that each child is different. Now, I've been using a program called Oak Meadow the last couple of years, and it's not a cheap curriculum. I'll be truthful. It's American. It's very expensive, but it's very project oriented. So you do some reading, and then you pick from a series of activities. And I've done it twice now. So for example, the grade 6 unit. Now, I will admit this. Both my kids in the grade 7 year has used the Oak Meadow grade 6 book because I felt that it was a better fit for what they are, because I'm able to choose and adapt what is best for my kids. Okay, so Oak Meadow for me has been great because it has allowed each of the kids to choose an activity that fits their personal preference, whether that's go build something out of Lego or go do an art project. Now, there are lots of options for curriculum, and the best part is that you can absolutely adapt it to your kids. You know your kids best. You know how they learn. Trust yourself. It's going to be fine. Okay. Now, the other thing that's really cool, if your kid is really good. So lots of special needs kids have areas that are awesome, right? So they might struggle with reading, but they may excel awesomely in math. And the cool thing about homeschooling is you don't have to hold them back. If they are blowing away in math, they can go. Who says that you need to only do grade 6 math at the grade 6 level? If your child is amazing in math, keep them going. Nothing needs to hold them back. As long as they're understanding and they're getting the concepts, you can go at whatever speed is needed. Okay. Another great thing about homeschooling with special needs kids, they can move. If they need to change positions, if they need to go somewhere else, if they need a time to cool down and settle down after an argument with somebody, they can leave. They can do that. They can go to the bathroom whenever they want to. They can do anything they need to be able to make it through the day. So this is why, for me, homeschooling has been a really awesome benefit for my kids. And I'll talk a little bit about my social anxiety child. So homeschooling for him has been both a blessing and a challenge, because in some ways he's older and he feels a little bit like he made a decision that he doesn't, in no way does he regret being homeschooled, but he wonders if being at school would have helped him push him out of his safety zone. But he's thankful that he's been homeschooled all this time. Now, we are able to sit and talk with him and challenge him and be able to find ways to, honor who he is as a person and really respect his challenges, and to be able to encourage him to get out of his comfort zone and to find ways to work together towards his goals. So we've set goals and we've encouraged him to work towards them. So for me, that has been a huge success for homeschooling, a whole really awesome reason for homeschooling. So if you are homeschooling this year and you have a child with special needs and you're very overwhelmed, I want you to know something. First and foremost, you're brave. Okay? I know can be scary when you don't know what's best, and especially if you have support systems in place for your child and you're feeling a little bit like you're losing everything because it's not the same. First of all, so you're brave. I want to tell you that, okay? But remember, we're not doing fear. No fear this year. We're going to do it. And it might not work exactly as we hope, and it might not be as pretty as we would like it to be. And you're going to have bad days. You're going to have hard days. Okay. But some things that you need to remember is that this journey is about trusting yourself. Your children and you are going to build bonds. Okay. You know your child. You know how they learn. You know how to best reach them. And if you can't do exactly everything on the checklist that you're hoping this year, who cares? It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. You're doing it best to your child, best to your relationship. Just trust. Now, one thing that's very important, very, very important. Make sure if you are homeschooling children that are hard, okay, the ones that you love to pieces but are hard to parent, hard to teach, okay, take time for yourself. Take time, make sure that somewhere built in the schedule, you have a chance to breathe on your own for a little while, because it can be completely overwhelming. And if you push, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, you're going to burn out hardcore. Trust me, I have hardcore burnt out. It's a terrible place to be, and it's not really a wonderful way to be able to homeschool. I recommend, I'm not saying head off to the spa with the girlfriends, unless that's cool, if that's your thing and you can make it happen. But it might be just taking a 5-minute break outside and standing with your face to the sunshine, and I like calling it powering up. It might be hiding in the bathroom, although they tend to find you in the bathroom, or in your closet with a chocolate bar. It might be binging on a Netflix show after they've gone to bed. Okay, my encouragement for you is to just find what works. Focus on what your kids need, spend time recovering yourself, and just loving on your child more than anything. Okay, so as I said, I'm not an expert in special needs. If you have questions, I have amazing resources for you. For example, Diane Geerlinks from Geerlinks Therapy, Educational Therapy. She is a pro and she's an expert, and she's so awesome to talk to, and she will just encourage you on your journey. So that's one I can put a link after this to it. If you have any questions, comments, thoughts, things that you need to answer, or just get off your chest, know that I'm with you. I understand. Okay. And I'm applauding each one of you. So put a comment below and I'll chat later. Okay. Talk to you tomorrow.